Okay, welcome back to part 2. I honestly had no intention of breaking this into 2, but the first video was just getting way too long and I still had 2 drawers to go through, so we're starting again. And I'm trying a different angle. Hopefully this works a little bit better. So I'm just starting at this end here. This is the Jeffree Star Mini Breaker. I have very few opinions on this one so far. I have actually not really used it other than to use like little pops of color for underneath my lash line. But I assume it's probably pretty close to the large jaw breaker, which I have used a little bit more. Anybody who's been around YouTube for a long time, this one is quite the blast from the past. This is the Tarte Graveyard Girl Swamp Queen. I swear I reached for this so much and I have no idea why. I can't actually believe I have not hit pan on that. I also have the Lunar Beauty Moonspell palette. I love the packaging on this. It is so beautiful. It's going to go up into the top. I literally just got this only a few days ago. And this is what it looks like. This is a really underrated palette. I loved the look I came up with and I was just like mashing shades together. I was gonna do an overview of what's actually in this drawer, but I forgot. This is mostly indie brands and indie makeup. There is some other stuff mixed in, like there is some Too Faced in here, but like there is some mainstream things in here, but for the most part it is fairly indie. So just touching on the mainstream, I have the White Peach palette. This is one of those ones where I received this as a gift and I still have not really used it too much. I've used it maybe once or twice. The Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes. This is one of those palettes where people were like going mental over it and I like bought it and I used it a couple times, but I just didn't get it. The Tartelette, the original Tartelette palette. The Tartelette in Bloom. Love the packaging on these. I honestly like live and die for this packaging. So, so beautiful. The Tarte Clay Play. This one came in BoxyCharm. They actually sent me 2 of the same palette, so I gave the other one to my girlfriend. The Meet Matrimony palette. I believe I bought this in New York as well at one of the Ipsy events. So I have some mixed feelings about this one. This is the Melt Cosmetics Millennial Pinks. I want to love it. I really do. But I've only used it twice, and you can see it looks like I've used it way more than that. Like it looks like it's been dug into. Sorry, I've used it more than twice. That's not a fair statement. But I have not used it enough for it to look like how it does. This is another BoxyCharm palette. This is the Pretty Vulgar Nightingale palette. I actually like this. I like the colors and I like the tones of it. Not a lot of people liked it, but I actually did. Do. I am really emotionally attached to this one. This is the Balm Balm Jovi. I think Emily Noel also inspired this purchase. This is an older one, but I'll probably never get rid of it. There is some like real throwback stuff in here that I just cannot seem to part with for some reason. Okay, back to Melt. I do have the Smoke Sessions palette. This is probably one of my favorites from them. For everybody's reference, I don't do drugs, even though I have all these weed-related palettes. The Gemini palette, which I bought because it's a Gemini, my best friend's a Gemini, and sometimes I miss her, so I do things like buy palettes that remind me of her. Also, that Goals shade has quite the dip in it, damn. These are 2 palettes I sat on for a long time, and I am glad I ended up picking them up. These are the Vida and Muerte palettes. They're supposed to like stick together, but they don't for me for some reason. I love this packaging. I also really love the shades. I thought this was going to be my least favorite of the 2, and it's actually definitely my most favorite. I use this one way more than I use this one, if you can believe that, even though this is screaming way more up my alley than the Dark and Stormy one. So these next 4 palettes I actually picked up through the Boxy pop-up a few months ago. These are the Ace Beauté kind of collection. This is the Blossom Passion. I like all of these. They didn't get great reviews, but I really like them. They're seriously underrated in my opinion. I need all the plastics out of these babies. This one is Paradise Fallen. So they all kind of have a theme. This is the Essential Paradise. This is probably one of my more favorites of the 4. And then the Slice of Paradise, which is probably my second favorite. Okay, then we have my Pinky Rose palettes. This is the Obsessed, which is all bright. So you can kind of see like really where I'm at with my makeup collection. Bright lights, same thing, very bright. This is the Center Stage by Pinky Rose. All of these I got from Ricky's NYC. This is definitely like your fall type palette. And then the Exotic Peacock, which is quite exotic. And this is like real for real peacock vibes. I don't think they could have done a better color story for a peacock, personally. Then we have my Jouer Ultra Foil palette. This is my only Jouer palette I own, for the eyes anyway. And a Morphe palette that I don't believe I've ever actually used. This is the Copper Spice 25A. So I believe I got this at Ipsy Live this year. So I'm going to leave this one in here because it has the shade names. So this isn't my only Morphe palette, but I do have those in the next drawer. Moving over here, we have Lime Crime Venus 2. Venus 2 is coming up. I do have an interest in the new versions of these Lime Crime palettes, but because I don't reach for these as much as I could, I have held myself back. This is definitely my most reach for. This is the extra small rose gold, and I just love the shade in the bottom here. I don't know how I've managed to do all of this and not swatched anything. Damn, who am I? Ace Beauté Grandiose palette. This came in a BoxyCharm as well. I should like do a best of BoxyCharm palettes. This one is the Berry Cute. I definitely picked this up from Ricky's NYC as well. Kat Von D's 10th anniversary, and truthfully her swan song. Last swan song, I guess. This is a palette that I do like, but I don't feature on my channel anymore. Same with the Metal Matte, which is fairly large. This is probably one of her best ones, in my opinion. This is the In the Balm of Your Hands. I did pick this up in New York. It's kind of like their classic 5 shades and their classic 4 shades of eyeshadow versus face palettes. And the benefit of that is the face items can also be used as eyeshadows. This is the Jeffree Star Androgyny palette. This was the one that kind of kept me from picking up anything else, because I did buy this and then kind of feel meh towards it, but his new formula is much better in my opinion. And this is probably one of my all-time favorites. This is from the Makeup Maniacs, and it is the Butthurt palette. And man, in this time of year, shit. Like, if we can just take this palette in for a moment and have a laugh. Are you done? Do you get it? Do you get why I enjoy it so much? And last but not least in this little container is my Stila. What is this one called? This is my only Stila palette, I think. A Whole Lot of Love. So this one is older. It used to have a mascara in it. This one probably is almost ready to go. Okay, back to Dominique Cosmetics. This is the Lemonade palette. This one I did purchase myself during the Sephora sale, and I like to use in the spring, but that's pretty much where it ends for me. And then this is the Latte palette. This one I actually can't even remember where I got it from. I must have picked it up from Sephora as well. But I really am on the fence about the formula. I'm really not sure why. This guy is the Sweet Tooth palette from Makeup Maniacs, and I don't actually like this one very much. The only shade I really reach for is that purple, and the quality of the purple's not very good. All right, getting into some classics here. This is the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette, and I got this well after it was popular, so I feel like I was just experiencing some FOMO with that. And then this one is the Colored Rain Cheers to Beauty. This one is like my be-all end-all of Christmas palettes. Every time I open it, I'm just like, oh my god, Christmas, yes! This should be it for my Lime Crime, and this is the Venus XL. I really just liked it for like the spring shades and how it looked, and it was like an interesting color story. I don't really have anything else like that, but the e.l.f. palette I did just pick up is fairly close. And then this one is the Lunar Beauty Strawberry Dream, and Kathleen Lights talked me into this. Either Kathleen Lights or Raw Beauty Christie, I can't remember. One or the other. One of them got me. And then last but not least in this row is the Colored Rain Vivid Pigments and Shadows. And this is another one I use way more than I ever thought I would. But you know what? When I look at this and then I look at that Alyssa Edwards palette from part 1, I definitely reach for this one more. And these are all mattes and they're all colors. So maybe I should have just noticed that I had this instead. These two here are from Kaleidos. This one is the Futurism 5 Neon. And then we have the Futurism 4 Electro Turquoise. These ones I really want to spend some more time with, but I find the packaging's a little annoying to work with, so I, like, it's beautiful, but it's irritating to work with, so I don't typically reach for them too much. And then this is the Jawbreaker, which I also got off of Poshmark. So again, I didn't actually give him my money, but for a Brights palette, it's pretty great. And then last but not least, over on this side is all of my ColourPop palettes and one Tarte palette. This is my Tarte Pineapple palette from the holiday collection, I believe last year or the year before. It's giving some weird reflex and kind of screwing with my lighting, so I'm going to put that back there. That is also a palette that lives at the boat. So I guess I will go through my monochromatic palettes first from ColourPop, which has my favorite blue, which is this Tide Pool shade. There is nothing else in my collection that is like that Tide Pool. This one is It's My Pleasure. This is the first purple palette. I have the pastel ones on their way right now. Don't tell my husband. This one is Ooh La La, which is the pinks. I've got a pretty good dent in the shade Sandbar here. Main Squeeze is one I probably could have done without. It's not horrible. It's just, again, these aren't really shades I would reach for that much. But now that I'm looking, these red bottoms and Baywatch are kind of nice. Then we have Aha Honey. So Aha Honey and the Urban Decay Honey palette came out about the same time. This shade here, this Queen Bee, is something I was trying to hit pan on too. I did get a bit of a dip into it, but I used it like 15 times and you can barely tell. So I've given up the goat on that one. The Smoke Show, so I have the original Smoke Show. Now I think it's called something else, like Blaze or something. But this is honestly an underrated palette as well. If you are into cool tones, that's definitely it for you. The Smoke Show and then Going Coconuts are probably two of my favorites that ColourPop has ever released. Then we have Just My Luck, which is the greens, and Meant to Be is on its way as well. And Mar, which is one of the original 9 pans, and Soul, which is, so the Mar is kind of the blues and this is more like the gold brown corals. I do also have the Frozen 2 Elsa palette. I got this for Christmas from my husband. It was kind of an interesting color story, so I did grab that, but I, again, don't have too much of an opinion because I haven't used it too much yet. I got into this like Jeffree Star Spiral. This is the ColourPop Semi Precious, and when I got into the Jeffree Star Spiral, it like made me forget about everything else. This is the Give It To Me Straight. I can probably declutter this one or put it on Poshmark. It's beautiful, but just not something I ever reach for, and it's a color story that's continuously repeated through my collection. This is the My Little Pony. Again, haven't reached for this one a ton. I feel like ColourPop is more about like collecting than anything for me, which I realize this is not the idea, but it's what's happening. This is the Dream Street. I've definitely used this one a ton. It's probably one of my uglier palettes, like uglier because it's been used and loved. This is the Good Sport palette. This has one of my favorite shades in it, which is this Ebb shade down at the bottom. I would say that's probably one of the better shades in my whole collection, actually. The Rendezvous palette from ColourPop. I think this was like an Ulta exclusive, and this is probably one of my least favorite ColourPop palettes. It just doesn't do it for me. It's not one I would have bought. The Zodiac by Kathleen Lights. Love Kathleen, would have supported her no matter what. The ColourPop Sweet Talk palette. This is very like spring and girly. The Villains palette. This is the Misunderstood palette. Honestly, I love this a lot. I was using it a lot when I got it. I was definitely really inspired when I was using this to kind of get outside my general style of makeup, and it's one that I reach for when I want to go kind of outside where I would normally. This is the Makeup Shayla ColourPop Perception palette. I Love Sarah E. Through My Eyes. The Single Rainbow palette I did pick up. A lot of these are really beautiful. It looks like I haven't even touched some of them, which I haven't, but that's beside the point. But everyone I have used in there I've really liked. And then the Kathleen Lights So Jaded palette. I also really love this. And I have used not all of the shades, but quite a few of them. And so far, every look that's come out of this has been beautiful. All right, so that is that drawer. This was a little bit challenging to get in frame. It's pretty much on the floor, but I will do my best to go through this. There's a lot of like, this drawer is more like singles and really large palettes. Obviously all of my Juvia's Place. So I'm gonna go through this very, very quickly. This is my singles. I've depotted a bunch of Kat Von D stuff. These ones are Kevyn Aucoin. This is Kat Von D, and these down at the bottom are Makeup Forever. I do have like a whole stack of MAC singles in this corner, which I'm not going to go through because there's no point. They're not labeled. This is the IBY Ocean Awakening. Between this one and the other IBY palette, the poolside one, this one's definitely better and higher on my list. Controversial moment. This is the Ring the Alarm palette from Jaclyn Hill and Morphe, the Scandalized Vault. This one is Bling Boss, Armed and Gorgeous, and Dark Magic. So I have this thing where I really like to like get involved in whatever controversy is happening and like buy whatever and see what my actual thoughts are, as you can see from my collection. These are all depotted Kat Von D shades. This is Old Wet and Wild and just some like old random shit. I'm probably gonna have to go through this and chuck a lot of it. I think this is my Mary Luminizer highlight that kept falling out of its container, so I just like made it a new home. Back here we have the Saints and Sinners palette. I actually kept this one in its container or in its palette because it's just beautiful and I just like how it looks. And I want to explain it to you. I did do a review on this JolieBeautyBomb.com glitter palette and I just realized that it's coming apart. Should we just give it up while we still can? Look at this. It's totally coming apart. What to do about that? All right, we have the Zodiac palette here. This one needs to definitely be pulled out. I don't reach for this nearly enough, which seems unfair considering. Unfair to who? I don't know. I'm not indicating it has feelings. All right, so we need to like have a moment about this. So I am not Jaclyn Hill's #1 fan. Truly, I'm not. I don't particularly care for her here or there. I don't follow her on Instagram or anything. But the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 is amazeballs. I've been using this like crazy and it's just like a natural reach. Even if I put it away, I'm still reaching for it. So if you're on the fence, remember, like, you can like the makeup and not like the person. On the other hand, I do have the initial Jaclyn Hill palette and I saw that there was some nonsense coming out about that recently where people were not too happy with the formula changes that Jen Love Reviews found out about, and I don't blame you, but I do still have it. This is the Rude Cosmetics 28 Shimmer palette. I honestly have not used this at all, and I probably could stand to just to like get an opinion at least. And then back here we have the Moschino X Sephora palette, which I really wanted to have and bought in Sephora, and then I barely reached for because it was so big. These ones are a little bit more challenging to get to. This is the Morphe Boss Mood. I did do a tutorial with this one. This one is the 39A, which is just massive, beautiful palette, but way too big. And then same with the James Charles palette, which I really just wanted to see what all the hubbub was about. And then he got himself into some hot water. So I haven't used it too much and I never talked about it really on my channel. All right, now I'm gonna run through my Juvia's Place collection. This one is the Afrique palette, the Saharan. Oh guys, we're almost to the end. The Nubian, Warrior 3, which I love. Warrior 2, which I also love. This replaced my Kat Von D Shade and Light, which I gave to my girlfriend. The Tribe, love greens and oranges, love this whole color story. Preach. The Festival. Zulu, I can't look at this and not, or sorry, not this one. This is not what I was thinking about. This is beautiful too, but this is the one I can't look at and not think, there's a dog hair in it, and not think about Kaylee Baute, who I miss dearly and I would love to know what happened to her. And this is the Masquerade Mini, like more realistic size pans. Nubian 2. Ooh, stuck my finger in it. And the Magic. The Magic is really the most intense size-wise. It's like huge and colorful, just like me. And then we have an old Tarte with some face and eyeshadows in it. Okay, we have the very old Marc Jacobs Holiday palette, which I could probably live without. The Sigma Resort palette. I wore this for my engagement photos and a lot of the events through when I was getting married many years ago. And I'll probably never get rid of it. This is the Sigma Wildflower. I picked this one up from, I believe, Marshall's, and I do like it, but it's a little bit plain for me. This is the Reina del Caribe from Alamar Cosmetics. This came in BoxyCharm, and I think everybody and their mother has this. It's beautiful. Violet Voss Essentials also came from BoxyCharm. My friend gave this to me because she would not use the shades. The Lorac Pro Brunch Palette. A pastel palette that my mother got for me. Urban Decay X Kristen Leanne. This is the Kaleidoscope palette. Honestly, I'm not that person that's like, oh my god, the pans are not in the right place, so it bothers me. But like, I have a hard time with that palette. The Artist Shadows number 2 and the Artist Shadows number 4. Number 4 is definitely my preference. I don't find the shimmers in makeup forever actually work for my skin very well. This is the Suva Beauty Saffron palette. This was inspired in my purchase land by Lacey from Spooky Lips and Fat Hips. And I believe this was as well. This is the NYX Grind, which I got using points from Glossybox when I used to subscribe, but it came broken, which was heartbreaking. Guys, you can make whatever joke of this that you want, but I am just not made for being on my knees anymore. This is the NYX Swear By It. This is actually a pretty popular palette in the beauty world. The Tati Beauty Volume 1. You know what, I like it, but I'm not like in love with it by any means. It's not one that I reach for all the time, and it's not my natural thought process when I am reaching for palettes. My Sephora Pro Editorial. My Sephora Pro Cool Tones. These are probably going to end up on my Poshmark too, just because I don't really reach for them. They're nice, but I, again, have other palettes that I would reach for sooner. I do have my Makeup Forever Flash palette. I mostly use this at Halloween. Obviously, we're like a clown family. The white is like detrimented in a serious way. So this is basically what happened to my Naked 2 palette. My Naked 2 is here, my Ammo box is here, and my Dangerous palette's in here. I also have depotted the Casey Holmes kit from Physicians Formula in here as well, because everything's kind of all over the place. Sad about my Naked 2. The rest of my Naked 2 is in here, down at the bottom here, and my Electric palette, which also the packaging shattered on, so we are kind of making do. This mega palette here is my Sydney Grace and Makeup Geek Old Formula shadows. I don't know if people are interested in a single video, but there it is. This is my Huge Colored Rain palette, which I hopefully can get in frame, but this is all of my Lorac and Ofra shades. So I depotted all my Lorac palettes and mega palettes and put them in there. And last but not least, we have the Too Faced little, this is like the body of the lady from one of the collections this year. I have 2 Violet Voss palettes here. This is the Drenched Metals and the Initial Holy Grail palette. I remember buying these while I was on the freaking GO train, which is our commuter train. The Violet Voss Flamenco palette. The BH Cosmetics Royal Affair This one, I don't know why I had to have it, but I just did. Like, I was just feeling it. The Festival palette, which I really love and I use a lot actually, especially in the summer. This is my second last palette to show you guys. This is the BH Cosmetics Aurora Lights. I actually bought this because of the name. My first dog's name was Aurora, so sentimental value. And last but not least is the Revolution Emily Edit the Wants, sorry. I did not have any problems with mine. There's still no problems with mine. I did like it a lot. I used it quite a bit. I believe I used every single shade in there. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked this palette collection, part 2. And I hope you stayed tuned for the whole thing. And if you haven't seen part 1, make sure you go see that too. I'll see you later.